life again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos with me, Steve Wraith, George, Keith, Steve and Mitch, and no doubt be joined by Joe at some point. Andrea and Scunny Mag have also made their contributions, and looking ahead to the weekend with Newcastle facing Liverpool at home in the Premier League the week before the Cup final. Lots of talking points, lots of things you probably want to discuss in the chat. And as always, if somebody sends us one during the week, I do tend to keep a hold of it and put it across there. And Andy Cooper sent us this one. He says, a question for the three amigos, if you don't mind, please, Steve Wraith. Do you think the club could implement a policy of holding back, say, 250 tickets to away games for those of us without many loyalty points at present? Just got no chance of building up loyalty points. It's controversial. So we've moved on from tickets and Wembley to this because, again, it's a system which has been in place for many a year now. What's your thoughts, George, on maybe putting some away tickets aside for those people?
Very difficult because you'll get accusations of all sorts of other underhand dealings, with these tickets. So if the system we've got has worked in a way, then we're stuck with it. The only real way is to take a root and branch, look at all this ticket and stuff now that there's been this controversy this time, and try and sort it out once and for all with the new owners, with the season ticket holders, and take it from there. But no, I think tinkering like that will just cause even more controversy, Steve.
Keith, tickets always going to be something that we're going to end up discussing on here, but somebody asked, so I've put the question out. What's your thoughts?
It's a good question. After what I've witnessed with Wembley, I think whatever opinion you have, you're not hiding to nothing. If I was a season ticket holder that didn't get a ticket, I'd be devastated. And I saw one where a Man United fan said you've been to one Leicester game and he got a ticket. So it's just such an emotive subject, the lad's got a good point. How, if you have got no points, do you ever get any points? Is I guess what he's saying. And I think the nature of Newcastle and the support is always such that we'll always outsell the small allocations we get. We're one of the few Premier League clubs that they'll take the allocation up at every away ground. So I think you daren't say anything, to be fair, because everybody that's involved with the ticket distribution will swear they got it right, and they'll take all the plaudits. And then the minute it goes wrong, they'll say it wasn't us. So it's a subject where if anybody mentions anything, people have sat there with a pump action shotgun with a blast away at you. So for me, I just pleased for everyone who's going down, and pleased everyone's got a ticket. And as far as, do you think it's been extremely well organised? I think Stevie Wonder would say he would think it hasn't. But when you don't know what's gone on, how it's gone on, and who's been involved, you maybe it's best just keep your mouth shut. So I think for me, I just wish everyone well who gets a ticket, and feel sorry for them who don't. And I just think that it is a very, very when you've got demand that we've got, outstripping supply by multiples, it's always going to be a difficult thing to do. And if you put a plan in place to say, every sixth away game, we're going to throw it open to people with no points, or for 500 tickets or something, we're going to get a ballot. You're at least really letting people get involved and get in and buy it. But the most simple system ever for the cup final would have been, say, everyone who's got a season ticket goes into a batch first. You know, they all go into batch first because they've all got season tickets, and then satisfy them. And after that, satisfy people without season tickets. But it was done much more complicated. And from what I've seen on Twitter and what I've heard and read and some of the sub stories you get, you've got to feel sorry for people. You know, you've got people offering to sell their season tickets after 34 years because they haven't got a ticket. So I feel for any fan who's bought a season ticket, kept it, maintained it, and then hasn't got the Wembley. I just think it's because I've been to six Wembley performances by Newcastle, and if you were a regular attender or a season ticket holder, you got a ticket. You know, that's why it's big. And you know, when this team gets better and better, and when we become top of the league, there'll be another raft of people that aren't watching Newcastle yet. They'll come along and they'll join the queues and they'll get some of the tickets for people. So I don't know how anybody will sort it, but if you from what I've read, there's been a lot of angry people this time now.
Ticketing has created a division, Steve, says SJP Dave. It's always going to create a division. The initial conversation, though, wasn't to try and address tickets. It was, do you think there should be something done for people who can't pick up loyalty points? So I guess in a way that, you know, the comment by the viewer was that, you know, they're looking ahead now, and for people to be able to build up loyalty points, is it right that the club maybe is that a way of maybe helping people by allowing people, give more people a chance, I guess, you know, to be able to go to away games? I mean, it must be so frustrating for people at the moment who want to go to away games who can't. And I think Bournemouth, lesser capacity, for example, you know, is one of the rare games that I miss out on because the allocation's not great. And I usually miss out by about 20 loyalty points on that one. And it happened again this season. Manchester City starts at 100 loyalty points, though, because there's a bigger allocation. Got one, no problem. So, you know, ultimately, it you know, there's ups and downs with it all. But the problem is you're not going to be able to get any away tickets at this moment in time. If you're stuck on 20 loyalty points, chances of you getting away tickets now, unless it comes right down to zero, are zero.
Yeah, that's right. And the argument that's always put forward, Steve, is that you've got to go and work your way up through the system, a system that's been in place for, 30 years or whatever. And that's what you'll get thrown against you as soon as you mention looking at and altering the point system. No matter what you do with the point system, there's going to be an advantage to the people who have already got the loyalty points. And I understand what the questioner is saying in terms of being able to build loyalty points, starting from a 0 or from 1 or 10 or 15, in the hope that you can get to some of the bigger games. And the fact that people have been traveling away for so long and they've built up this loyalty point advantage is I suppose it's the way of the world, isn't it? It's the manner of this word loyalty again that gets bandied around. You know, even calling it a loyalty point, I suppose, is controversial to I was going to say to the way that the world is now. You know, is it woke to call them loyalty points? I don't know. Is it unwoke? It's all of these sort of, you know, this
probably.
This is what you're gonna get. I mean, I suppose one of the areas that the club should be looking at are the people who are just constantly buying and not going, and hence building up loyalty points, selling the tickets on. Perhaps they need to look at the whole ticketing system. And, you know, I mean, I was dead against something like an identity card, for example, for to go to the match, because I thought that was totally wrong, that football fans should be singled out and have to travel the country with an identity card to get to an away game. But perhaps we're now moving into the realms of it's got to be an electronic ticket, it's got to be a photograph on, and that way it evens out and gives an element of fairness. I suppose what we're saying is really that no matter what you do, people are going to be upset. People are going to be disappointed. The people, if you start fiddling around with a loyalty system and the point system, let's call it the point system, not the loyalty system. If you're going to fiddle around with the point system, then the people who've already got the points are going to be unhappy. Forgetting, of course, that they've already reached a maximum in terms of where the line of demarcation is. So that, it's going to take 20 or 30 years for them to be affected. Someone sitting there with 300 or 400 points is not going to be affected. And this is the conundrum that I think the club's got. And I think maybe they do need to look at it. I mean, I was there on the fans forum when the whole ticketing system was discussed. I know the individuals concerned who stood up very vociferously in favour of the current system. Excuse me. I know the people who were very, very anti any change whatsoever, and I could understand their position. It just became a quagmire that you were never ever going to resolve in a room, no matter how long you met. Maybe now is the time, though, that with a new owners, a new way of looking at things, new technology. Maybe looking at the whole ticketing system in the round, looking at the role of season ticket holders have and the positions that they hold. We've discussed it many times that you're a season ticket holder, you're basically a member. You're part of an elite group of fans who managed to get into St James's Park, and you've been doing it for years and years. Do you have a voice? No, you don't. You don't have a voice. There's nobody stands up for you. You have a problem. You have to go elsewhere, or you have to just deal individually with the club. So maybe again, that's something that needs to be looked at. But good luck to the person who sticks their head above the parapet and decides that this whole topic needs to be dragged through the mill and something coming out the other end that's going to satisfy everyone, because I can guarantee it won't.
I'd take it on from Steve. I'd go monkey so well upset.
I know you don't.
Go on, Mitch. Give us your view, mate.
Right. Stop us if I start going on, because I could. Yeah. History lesson first. Myself. You've heard me talk about the time when we had quite a few mates that used to go. We used to go and stand together in various bits of the Gallagher. Then when season tickets became the norm all over the ground and the ground started to get redeveloped, we got split up. We got split up twice. So there was 2 here, 3 there, 2 here, 2 there. Then when the ground was fully redeveloped, 4 of were, by some cock-up in the ticket office, ended up with 2 season tickets each. 1 in my former seat and 1 in the new seat where we were in. So I kept them going and let mates use it and kept it running. And then when we all finally decided, when one of the lads decided he wasn't going to be a tight arse and was going to finally move into Bar 1892 with all, we got all 11 or 12 seats together in there. And we dropped the extra season tickets that we had. And the 4 who had the extra tickets, suddenly the club had cancelled the one which had all the loyalty points on and kept the one that had none of the loyalty points on. So all my loyalty points disappeared and I couldn't get them back. I said, no, not possible to have them back. Don't keep the long-term record. Once it's deleted, it's deleted. So I had to start again. Been there, done it, got the T-shirt. You can do it. It's infuriating. It's a pain in the arse. When you're used to just rocking up and getting a ticket, and then suddenly you're at the back of the queue and you've got to wait till it goes to 0. Now, I know we've got a slightly different situation now, and I'll come to that in a bit. But it should give you an idea of how you can build your points back up. The fact that I was in pot 1 still, even though I've not lived in the UK for 11 years. That's how many loyalty points I still had. And I built them back up from 0. So it is possible, but you've got to do some bloody hard yards to do it. And I've seen in the thing, yes, away friendlies, flying to Madeira. I nearly lost a job because I went to bloody Madeira, for God's sake. We're friendly, not even a competitive game. And so it's very hard to do. Fast forward and now we have got a really unusual combination of fans in different tiers. That's before the club starts putting them in different tiers. We have people who've kept their season tickets for the entire time, but have never really done many away games, so they don't have many loyalty points. We've got people who've kept their season tickets for the entire time and have got quite a few loyalty points because they did away games too. We've got people who wrap their season tickets in and have no way to get their loyalty points back and are members. But we have got a group of people who, for a short period of time, were allowed to drop from season ticket holders to members and retain their loyalty points. And so there's another division. And so we've got this mishmash of things which comes out of different decisions in different eras of the club. The reason I held on to my season ticket, and the reason you never heard me when I was interim chair of the trust telling everybody to pack the season tickets in, was I could not do it. And I wasn't going to tell 1,500 to 15,000 people to do it because I couldn't myself. That's not right. It's not big. It's not clever. I feel for those who did wrap it in and then didn't get them back during the scramble when the 10K became available. There are certain people, I believe, who took advantage of that situation and sit pretty on the back of it. And again, I suspect they looked at the way the club wanted to go with it and went, "Oh yeah, we've all got tickets. That's fine." And would I do the same? Yeah, probably would. To be honest. Wouldn't you? I think you would. You can tell us that you wouldn't, but I think you would. And so it's really very difficult. I think we do. My dad used the word there, root and branch. We do need a root and branch review of how this works going forward. And one of the things we implored the new owners to look at was communication, particularly with season ticket holders. Because I genuinely believe it really is not right that people who've held season tickets throughout the entire Ashley era and through for 15, 20 plus years have missed out on Wembley tickets for our first final in ages because they didn't tick the boxes for loyalty points or they didn't tick the boxes for something else. Or maybe they could have got a ticket and they wanted to go with their mates, so they hung fire and dropped into a different lower pot to fly with their mates. And maybe even some of their mates have got tickets and they haven't. That stinks. And anybody with half a brain can look at that and say that stinks. Anybody involved in that with the decision should be embarrassed and should be able to take it on the chin and say, yeah, we got that wrong. And we need to look at how this works. And if you think this is going to be a problem with this competition, bear in mind we get even fewer tickets for an FA Cup final. I think the allocation for teams at FA Cup finals goes down to 25. And so what the hell is going to happen then? That is when you probably do need points of difference between the season ticket holders. Have you been to so many cup games? Have you been to so many away games? Do we have so many loyalty points? Is it a Wednesday and is the middle name Jeffrey? And do you own a BMW 3 Series between the ages of 2015 and 2017, but not in red? You can complicate it as much as you like. You're going to piss people off. It needs to be simple, easily understandable, and these are the divisions that are still there. We're still able to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're still able to turn the guns inward on each other. That powder keg's there to go off any time with our fan base. And that's part of the Stockholm Syndrome of Ashley. But it's some of it's deeper seated than that. And if the club want to really, really impress with, this is something that needs action and it needs transparent action, and it needs very, very, very high level communication skills. Keeping tickets back will just piss a lot more people off again. The only thing I can say about a loyalty point system is it's simple and everybody understands it. Is it fair in the current environment? I don't know how you work that out. There's never, ever, ever a simple way to do it. Steve and I have had these conversations probably since the first week we met. And here we are having the same conversations again. You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's an interesting one because do you remember when somebody said to us, never mind those who have been going for 30 years, they've had plenty chance to watch Newcastle play. That was one side of that. Oh, they've had loads of chances. We haven't had any chances to go.
Dad, get off. You've been around for long enough. Go away.
Yeah, that was one of them. That was one of the. That's what you get on that side of the fence. On the other side of the fence, you get. I've been to all the games and I've got an entitlement to carry on going, and so it goes on. I think that there is a genuine sort of feeling out there that it's the passing on of tickets, it's the purchasing of tickets, and then the passing them on to somebody else. That's the bit I think that probably needs controlled. If the
question that comes up repeatedly.
Yes.
Particularly about London games.
Yeah.
And that tickets get bought to generate a loyalty point and get passed on almost immediately. You know where they're passed on to. Does it need to become the tickets attached to an individual and is non-transferable, or is only transferable through a recognised pathway through the club?
Yeah, that's what they've tried to do in the past. I think the thing is, it's not illegal to do that at the moment. Of course, I mean, we see.
No, of course not.
We see it with tickets for gigs. You know, I mean, how many of us have been sat online trying to get a ticket for a gig that we want to go to find out that it's sold out, and then within minutes it's on another website being sold for 3 times its value.
Yeah,
we have something out here called Dubizzle. Right, it's a website. It's a bit like your classifieds. You can get your houses, you can get your cars, you can get all sorts of it. And then whenever there's a big gig here in Dubai, it usually sells out online within 3 or 4 hours. And within 30 minutes, people are selling tickets on Dubizzle at 2 and 3 times the price that they paid for it. It's instant.
There is a clause, though, that says the tickets are non-transferable. And that's why the club has a return system where you're supposed to be return. If you buy a ticket, you can't go. You're supposed to return at the club for resold.
For me, that's the way that needs to be enforced. Yeah. Because that's then an open, recognised way of dealing with somebody who's bought a ticket and gone, oh, hold on, can't make it next week. What do I do with it? And then people would get a chance to go. Question they'll ask then, though, is, well, I bought that ticket, I want a loyalty point. And then the person who buys the ticket second time around will say, well, I want a loyalty point as well. So what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Do you give everybody a loyalty point?
You can't.
No, you can't, mate.
We had all of this at the fans forum. We had all of this. It was, honestly, you know.
And you'd get people who would join it like 2 or 3, 4 years in. And they'd come out with something like they just invented the idea, bless them. And then you could see faces around the table going, oh, fuck, not this again.
Mark Ritchie says, by keeping back 250 tickets, it wouldn't affect the vast majority of the loyalist fans. Even if it's 100 tickets kept back, it's better than out and gives fans a chance, which I can see the point. I think it's a great suggestion. I've got to be honest. And I mean, you know, some of us will, why not give people an opportunity? But it needs to be addressed. I just think, like I said, when we started this World Cup final thing a few weeks back, it needs to be, put out some suggestions. This is where Darren Eales needs to think about things. Go and speak to the supporters that you've got on your database. You've got season ticket holders. You've got members. They are the people you need to speak to. Yes, go and speak to the Supporters Trust. Go and speak to War Flags. Go and speak to as many independent groups as you want. Go and speak to NUFC, who we heard from Steve Wilkinson a couple of weeks ago, weren't even consulted on this, which is bizarre. Go and speak to the supporters as a whole, as many as you can. Do what I tried to do in 2000, which was to try and get in touch with all of the supporters branches around the world and put them all in touch with the club so everybody has a say. you need somebody to address this, and it does need to be looked at, because this is only going to get worse if Newcastle do progress and do get better. We're going to be in a right situation where this is going to happen season after season. It needs to be looked at, and it needs to be looked at now. And especially if there's going to be an expansion to the ground, it's going to be another 7,500, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 supporters to chuck into the mix. It's going to get worse.
Do you not think it'll all just die down, Steve, when everybody who said, I just want to see we'll win something before I die, sees we'll win something and then says, that's it, I've seen them win something? Do you not think that's a big gap?
I'm starting to feel uncomfortable here.
We hear it time and time again, and I'm just thinking, once I've seen them win, I'll be happy, and maybe I'll not be that bothered of not
on your life, on your life, Steve. They're all greedy little ducks like me. They'll keep wanting to keep going.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, look, we'll draw a line under it today, because it just goes on and on and on. We don't have an answer to it, but thanks for thanks for putting it in. It was a good question. It was a good question. Yeah, George, you can have the final word on it, George.
Remember what Steve and Neil just said. This is for a Carabao Cup. Imagine what it would be like for the FA Cup.
Yeah, Champions League finals, 15,000 apparently.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Good luck getting a ticket for that. You know what I mean? It's going to be a nightmare. The best bet is, if we do enter into the Champions League, is to start looking at the some of the sponsors and trying to befriend somebody who works for one of the sponsors. That's the best way to get a ticket for the game. Anyway, let's move on. Tweet of the week. Thanks to everybody who contributed. Zara, especially, who always sends us a load. Burnley fans submitted names of those that were lost in the last year. I think I'm going to question Mike Litterus, 69. If I'm wrong, I supremely apologise to his family. It's always somebody who has to do something like that on a list, really. But Jimmy Moore, thanks for this one. Sam Smith, and yet another pathetic outfit. I had a few people send us this, including, I think it was Mitch in the WhatsApp group, but very good. This was an advert in one of those supermarkets, plump, sweet, and begging for cream. Notice the shelf empty. And Kenny Wharton's Noel Pecker says, of the worst farts I've ever smelt, 98% of them have been at the match. Someone here today could easily commission a second series of Chernobyl. Nothing worse than a beer fart at a match, it has to be said. McDonald's to remove tasteless sign opposite Cornwall Crematorium. Had to remove the McCrispy.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Dear.
And you thought smoking at the pump was risky. Thank you for that. Exactly, yeah. This one from Sharon Marshall. What is LLDW LDL? Answer A, a town in Wales. Answer D, Liverpool's last 7 results. Thanks to Keith for that one. This one, Wayne Bennett, poor Pep, 101 allegations. That was doing the rounds this week as well. This tickled me as well, from Soda Pop Kid, the King of Blackadder, splendid. Underground, overground, and someone's put wombling free underneath. Valentine's Day this week, of course. Wayne Bennett sent me this. This was doing the rounds as well. Happy Valentine's Day. Bring your girlfriend, 20% off. Bring your wife, 45% off. Bring both at the same time, free. On a safe wicket with that one. I Am the Renovation, great place to get trainers. This caught me eye this week. The 3 Amigos, Diego Maradona and the Gallagher brothers. Very good, that. Yeah, we're gonna have to sue them. We can only sue 2 of the 3 lads. Yeah. And Ian Hull sent us this one. All I'm saying is, when you promise me a special Valentine's treat for dessert, I'd kind of set me heart on apple crumble. And another Amigo Loans Company. 1-0 to Amigo Loans, says Nick. Loan firms Amigo let off £73 million fine. Certainly not us. Ian Hull sent us this one as well. Our house in the middle of our street.
Brilliant.
Was classic, isn't it?
Brilliant.
And tweet of the week from Jimmy. Man dies after masturbating 62 times straight on Valentine's Day. Toby replied, guys, take note. The limit is 61.
Oh, dear.
And this one from Keith. Barnsley family speak fear of starving to death as food price continues to rise. Think about it.
Very good.
And Sky Sports Premier League say they're delighted to announce that they'll be covering every Newcastle match in March in the Premier League. They'll probably also be covering every game for the next 20 years now that Eddie Howe's mags are class. And Eric Sensational says the hatred I have for Newcastle Football Club is unrivaled. Starting to get up a few Man United fans' noses at this moment in time, I think. I did like this from Odds Bible. Liverpool versus Chelsea last season. Liverpool versus Chelsea this season.
Very good.
This one. Legal question. If I let Thomas open the mini cheddars in Tesco before they've been paid for to stop him being a stroppy little git, will he go to jail for shoplifting for me? Sheila replied, I hope you're in charge and choose whether or not to let your child eat things you haven't paid for. I see lots of parents doing that, then furtively hiding the evidence so that they don't have to pay. Really annoys me knowing the rest of us will have to pay higher prices. Simon Harris goes, all right, Sheila, he ain't Ronnie Biggs. Oh, God. This one I watched back to back. Michael Fabricant, a well-known Tory. The first 4 episodes of The Crown last night. It's very good. Just realised 90% is fiction. Billy Trey replied, at least 90% of your Crown is fictional too, to be fair. Jimmy Moore sent us this one. I went to a disco last night. They played The Twist. I did The Twist. They played Jump. I jumped. They played Come On Eileen. I got kicked out for that one. And this one from Rocky Toon. Mum, is there really such a thing as a perfect man? Of course, dear. They're called Geordies. Get in. Very good. Got a few more to go through. This one, where it's slightly bigger than I thought, but the wife's not over happy with it. No doubt we'll be seeing that at Wembley. Stu Fowles O'Brien. This one from me mate Kenny Happel. Identifies as white diesel. He actually did that. A couple of pictures as well. Got to give a shout out to Gordon Brown for doing his window out like this. Fantastic, that, isn't it, lads?
It is brilliant.
Great.
So Bobby there in the middle as well. Fantastic. And then this one, Lennon Properties up in Ayrshire or Blythe. He's from Blythe, so you'll never beat Dan Byrne. How good's that?
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Good luck to all the lads in the cup. And big shout out to @Indigo Art, who've clearly gone in and done that. There's a little shout out for them.
That's United on Twitter's daughter, isn't it?
Is it? Right.
I think so.
Fantastic that. So well done to them for doing that. Last couple of tweets. Doug of the corner. Might stay off Twitter today. There's only so much Newcastle negativity. Sam Smith, painted nipples, an inflatable frog suit, and 200 different mobile phone angles of a loudmouth cockney getting a smack in the mouth a man can take. Yeah, it did go a bit mental that day, didn't it? Callum put this up. What have I just seen? Announcement. I'll be starting a Sheffield Wednesday firm. So if you'd like to join us, things you need to qualify. Clobber, up for scraps, away games, don't be squared, sit in North 11. Can imagine somebody's actually put that up as well. Richard Jolly, 11 Premier League managers have got at least 1 point at St Mary's this season. Nathan Jones is not one of them, despite managing Southampton.
God.
Stephen Petty came up with a new idea. Before committing to a long-term relationship, get a photo of them wearing a plain tracksuit with a grey wall as a background. If it looks like the image that could be used in a Netflix murder documentary, then you can leave the relationship safely. Henry Jackson, I think footballers should be allowed 1 free punch per season where there's no punishment for it. And every single punch should be reserved for Bruno Fernandes. The winner by a country mile this week, chaps, was this one. If only had punched this high 37 years ago, would have won the World Cup. That's a tweeting off that, mind. That was absolutely brilliant. Keep them coming. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Zara especially. And we'll have more of them next week. So Monkey Suit, you are right. That was the day that Amanda came, and good omen. Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. 100%. John Askew, I'll come to your questions about the game later in the show, but I am going to go for this one. Same to you, Spenny. Jimmy Watt says, getting off the ticket situation with Qatar wanting to buy Man United. Apparently, if it happens, do you think it would be a good thing to have the old rivalry back, Newcastle and Man United, or not? What's your thoughts on that, George? It was pretty short-lived rivalry because it only lasted for a little period in the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what would do you see that as a rivalry that's rearing its head again?
Well, they're making it so, aren't they? We've got them so worried that every time you go onto a social media platform, there's Manchester United fans giving it large, more than our lot, to be perfectly honest. No, I don't mind a rivalry with any team as long as they're at the top and we're beating them. That's fine. That's great rivalry. But at the end of the day, if Manchester United see us as rivals, that's great. I mean, the other one we used to have, which I did went on for a long time, was Leeds. We always seem to have a great rivalry with Leeds. That goes back into the 50s, never in the 60s, never mind just recently. But yeah, if they're at the top and we're at the top, then it does automatically becomes a rivalry because clearly at the moment we're getting under their skins and they don't like it. They don't like it up, as Corporal Jones would say. So yeah, if it's a rivalry, I'm happy to have that rivalry because what that really means is that we're up there punching our weight.
Do you want to give us a guess at a time scale for how long a takeover might go through at Manchester United with the Qataris, George?
A time scale?
Yeah, I mean, how long it took us to get a deal through
with
the Saudis.
It would go through in weeks, wouldn't it?
That's what I expected.
I mean,
anybody to say.
I mean, we've done the hard miles, and they know exactly what they'd get if they try to stop one of the big six doing something like that. So yeah, it would go through on the nod. A few weeks, if that.
Yeah. Okay, Keith, what's your thoughts on the rivalry, Newcastle United against Manchester United? Is it on the horizon again? Do you think are they starting something? Do you think with Newcastle again?
I think they taught themselves up. I mean, we're the biggest team in the city of Newcastle, but they're not the biggest team in Manchester. So why would we get carried away with them? I mean, if we were going to have rivals, I would rather take the big team out of Manchester. When you saw that, Man City destroy Arsenal this week, they just showed the class that they've got. When you saw the lack of class the Arsenal people had, chucking bottles of De Bruyne, it was a sublime performance by the lad. And the answer was they're just chucking, if they'd have been Newcastle, they'd have been a war. Seriously, if our fans threw bottles at the player, there'd have been photographs, there'd have been life bands, it would have hit all the press, it would have been on Sky. But it's Arsenal, so nothing happens. But Christ, if you're going to have a rival, for God's sake, choose the biggest in the city. I mean, it's like saying I want a rival out of Merseyside and going to attack Tranmere or Everton. What would I want to do with them for? I'd rather go for Liverpool, who are the biggest in Liverpool. And Man City are so far ahead of Man United these days. I just don't see there being any point rivaling Man United. They're just I think they're the yesteryear's team. Their own fullback, Gary Neville, was on television this week admitting that FFP was a result of the Big Six. That the Big Six cartel brought it in to stop them getting competition. And I think he's very true. I think it's very right what's happened. So I don't think Man United's big enough to... if Man City disappeared and Liverpool disappeared and this season Arsenal disappeared and then Chelsea got rid of all these players they've just bought, then Man United could stake a claim. But are they suggesting that all the other four teams who's outperformed them are going to lie down so we can have a rivalry with them? Nah, I don't see it. I respect Man City more than Man United. I think the fans are more genuine, and I think that genuinely, I'd rather rival Man City over the coming years.
Okay, what's your thoughts on this one, Steve? I mean, it's it was a rivalry, as I said to George. It was a short-lived one, but it was it was exciting while it was going on, and the kidology between Keegan and Ferguson and the mind games as well, something that sticks in your mind?
Yeah, it was a Sky Sports concocted rivalry, wasn't it? It was a thing of the time. It was of that particular two teams going head to head, two managers, both charismatic, both very good in front of a TV camera, and it made for good TV viewing. I mean, apparently the big rivalry is Man United and Leeds, or is it Man United and Liverpool? I'm not too sure. Or is it Man United and Man City? So it goes on, you know. That's their rivalry, you know, and rivalry just it's just par for the season. That's why we've got the Premier League. That's why we've got 6, 7, 8 teams pushing for the 4 Champions League spots. That's the rivalry, and I don't think there's rivalry between one particular club and another. I think that's why there's the jealousy among European football about the Premier League. I think that's why the European Super League is constantly being touted by Barcelona, Juventus, and Madrid, because they're jealous of the Premier League. They're jealous of the finances we've got. They're jealous of the purchasing power that we have. They have the historic pull, but that's about it at the moment. But as far as Manchester United and Newcastle, I've never considered Man United as rivals. I've just considered them yet another team in the Premier League that are there to be beaten. And I think the way Newcastle are building, yes, Man United have had a shocking start and they seem to have pulled something together recently. I think they've gone 9 games without defeat. They've pulled themselves back into the top 4. But that's just because they're a team that spends an awful lot of money, despite what certain TV people said this week, that apparently we outspend them all the time. This is the team that has an £80 million defender, and our entire defence costs less than him, but we outspend them. It's all TV bollocks. It's all rubbish. No, I mean, if there is a rivalry, it's a local rivalry, and it's the rivalry you have with Sunderland and the team that you want to beat, but the team that you never play.
Mitch, what's your thoughts on this rivalry?
I've got a different view on it all. And if I go back to the question he's talking about Qatari involvement in Man United, and my understanding from talking to people in the region and talking to people in the game, any Qatari bid hasn't been made voluntarily. It's people who have been courted by Rain who are handling the sale. If you recognise the name, it's the same people who handled the Chelsea sale.
Yep.
And they want Radcliffe to up his bid. His bid is deemed to be low by the Glazers, and so they're trying to get people involved. The other word that hit the streets this week was about a Saudi bid. Well, a Saudi bid went in for Chelsea, didn't it, from a Saudi media group? And they were dismissed at the first hurdle because they couldn't prove where the funds were coming from. And what's the betting? So they've had contact from Rain to say, are you interested in this? Yeah, we might be interested in that. Oh, there's no Saudi bid. We will know more by tomorrow because the deadline passed as we started the show. The soft deadline passed for bids of in place and interest. The biggest difference I can tell you from this region, all the time when people were saying PIF had left the table and we knew they hadn't, the press in this region was still talking about Newcastle United in fifth, even when our press had given up. And our press had given up, but the press here was still dropping hints. There has been nothing, and I've spoken to Roy in Doha, there's been nothing from Qatar about solid interest in Man United. And the complication isn't with the Premier League necessarily. Yes, I think if a Qatari bid went to the Premier League, it would get through because they've set a precedent. We've done the hard yards for them. Not because of the big 6, because they've painted themselves into a corner. However, that still doesn't get them past UEFA. And I think in the way football is at the minute, are UEFA going to take kindly to that? Probably not, really, because they're on the back foot. Now, Super League's reared its ugly little head again. The only positive from their point of view was a Qatari-owned PSG were one of the ones that really didn't were reluctant to join the Super League. So a Qatari-backed Man United and a Qatari-backed PSG suddenly become two bigger voices at UEFA who are reluctant to join. But it becomes far more complicated once that happens. But do I think it's happening? The only noise I think is coming from the rain end of the World Cup process. There's no noise about it at all in this part of the world.
Well, there you go. If Mitch hasn't heard about it, I would say it's fairly unlikely that it's going to happen. So you know, we'll watch this space. A lot of paper talk, and as we know, clickbaiting goes on. So from our perspective, we will watch this space. Tomorrow, George, War Flags are doing a big display, and they're doing it in honour of what would have been Sir Bobby Robson's 90th birthday. And Philip Scott mentions this as a question. He says, "What's your favourite Sir Bobby memory?" So that's what I want to ask the panel. Leeds away was Philip's favourite. Have you got a particular one?
Dance on the touchline.
Yeah, mine, to be honest, was the Sheffield Wednesday game when Shearer got 5. So I'm gonna claim that early. But Leeds away. Leeds away from Philip Scott. What about you? Favourite Sir Bobby memory?
Yeah, the two that you've mentioned are two I love as well. But I being of a sort of the old man on the panel, I've got to say one of the favourite memories I have were about people like Shola talking about Sir Bobby when he used to be in the dressing room and getting all the names wrong. And that used to enjoy. And I have a personal memory, which, if I'm allowed to use a personal memory, when I was working with the Home Office, if they called a flash meeting at a weekend, I used to have to fly down on a Friday. And quite often, if Newcastle were in London on a Friday, I'd get the flight down to London and Newcastle would be on. And I happened to be on when we were going to Arsenal. And sure enough, there was the team at the front of the plane, and I'm sitting at the back watching what was going on. And Shearer and Lee were sitting together, and it obviously told a joke to Sir Bobby. And they were laughing their heads off, absolutely wetting themselves at this joke. But of course, not far away from them, there was a couple of French lads sitting who clearly didn't understand what was going on. There was a Spanish lad. Was Nobby with then? I think he was. Nobby was there. He was shrugging his shoulders, and so Bobby went down each of the foreigners and explained in their language, what the joke was all about. And I thought to myself, is it any wonder that those players love that man? He's such a sensitive and intelligent man that you know, you couldn't get much better than that. But he did the lot. He did the French lads, he did the Spanish lads. Did we have an Italian? And I think we did. And he explained to each one what the joke was about. And slowly but surely, the laughter spread up the plane from one player to the other, because they start to understand what this stupid joke was that Shearer and Lee were going on about. And so Bobby explained it to them. So that's a personal memory, and I really enjoyed that.
Okay, Keith, you can use the same memories. It's going to be difficult when it gets to Mitch. We might have all mentioned Mitch's favourite, but yeah, look, just any memories, any personal memories.
When I look back at him, the way he fathered Paul Gascoigne when he got sent off, when he got that boot, he wasn't going to play in the final, and the way if you go back and look at Lineker's face, the distraught face Lineker had when they all like got round supported Gascoigne, but when you saw Robson, the way he acted that night, he was like the grandfather to everybody. He was the man that no matter what happened to you, to pick everybody off the floor and made things right. And then the big feeling for me, you know, I've got lots of good feelings. I mean, I've got this feeling that upset us when the likes of, you know, people are falling out, and when he left, like, you know, I remember people undermining him, people like Kieran Dyer, which I never forgive. I never forgive that, you know, kind of person. Like it comes back to the class of the human being. And when I look at Bobby Robson, I always see a man of class. And I think he demonstrated that before he came to Newcastle more than ever. He was targeted by his hometown club, the club that he wanted to play for. You know, lad from Langley Park just wanted to come and manage Newcastle. That was it. And it would have been like his crown and glory. And he was due to take that job. He could have took it straight after Keegan when things didn't go so well. But his loyalty stood out, and he got offered the Barcelona job. And I always remember at the time thinking, surely no man would turn down Newcastle. Like, you couldn't imagine Bobby Robson turned down Newcastle to take the Barcelona job. But apparently he'd given his word that he would take it. So he went to Barcelona and took the job. And then you look and you remember them waving the hankies when they wanted rid of him. And you just think, God, nobody would ever do that. Like, why did you not just let him go? And if you think of the greatness he built up, I mean, like Jose Mourinho worked next to him, and they just hero worshipped the man. So when we eventually got him, and on the day that Steve Wraith mentions, and those goals went in, you're seeing a man that should have done what? If you think of this Arteta when he's been running up and down touchlines during a 0-0 draw with Newcastle, get yourself hyper, and just completely losing all his class. And then you see Bobby Robson when Newcastle have the top centre forward of all time getting 5 goals in a league match on his return to Newcastle. And what did Bobby Robson do? He played it down. He didn't gloat. He didn't brag. He didn't boast. He actually had feelings for Sheffield Wednesday. And that's the measure of the man. Class that he didn't join when he could have. Class when he had to pick Paul Gascoigne up off the bottom in one of football's great moments of the last 5 decades. And class when he beat the team and he had a bloke scored 5 goals, and he had every right just to boast, show off, and be a pain in the arse to Sheffield Wednesday. But his feelings went to their manager. That's the first thing he said. And that's what I'll remember him as, just probably the classiest manager that ever graced the game.
Steve?
You're on mute, mate.
Yeah, you're on mute again, mate.
Chucking his voice.
Sorry, Dad. Sorry, just saying that some interesting comments. I'll just pick up on the Lineker and the crying of Gascoigne. I listened to a podcast a couple of weeks ago where apparently Lineker, the reason Gascoigne started to cry was because Lineker told him he was suspended. You do realise you're suspended. He then starts to cry. Then Lineker, the only bit you ever see of Lineker is when he's saying, have a word with him. He had just told the kid in the first place that he was not going to play in the final. So, crazy things. But getting back to Sir Bobby, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my abiding memory, I'll pick a different game, was the Arsenal 3-1 away win on my birthday in 2001. 3-1 win. Absolutely brilliant. Just seeing Sir Bobby on the touchline. I think we broke the hoodoo of 23 games where we hadn't won in London or something ridiculous like that at the time. That was special for me. That just seeing the build up coming up to Christmas, the smile on his face, smile on everybody's faces, and beating Arsenal, beating a team that have absolutely no time for whatsoever. And then, like you say, the way that a certain bunch of players treated him, and certain people behind the scenes at Newcastle treated him as well. And he did it all with dignity. And the other thing as well, Keith, that you failed to mention, was when he was at Barca, not only did he stick to the contract and stick to the fact that he had said he had made a promise to them, but he also stayed for an extra year. They brought Van Gaal in over him. They moved him upstairs, and he said, well, I've got a contract, so I still have to see, it's only fair that I see my contract out. And he did that when he could have walked away and he could have left. But again, he felt as though he had a loyalty to the football club, and so I'll stick the year out. And he was devastated, if I remember rightly, that the fact that they brought Van Gaal in above him to run the team and shoved him into some sort of like general manager role that meant absolutely nothing. I think he just won the cup for them as well. But he kept his dignity all the way through. And he kept his dignity through severe illness. And eventually, obviously, his passing was one of the most emotional periods in Newcastle United's history. And, to see the outpouring of love and affection for him, I think when you see something like that, it must have been great for the Robson family while they were going through the trauma of losing their father and their husband. but also to see the love that the rest of the Newcastle United fan base had for him. And I bet that helped them an awful lot. But the reason that happened was because of Sir Bobby, because of what he did and what he was as a man, as a human being. 90-year-old he would have been this weekend. And that's why we're celebrating and commemorating the time that he had, not just as England manager, but also as manager of Newcastle and manager of Ipswich, and obviously manager of Barcelona and PSV, and the great players who played alongside him will remember him, and still do remember him, whether it's Alan Shearer or whether it's the fat Ronaldo. They all speak with him with such high regard.
Yeah, it's amazing. To think he's no longer with us, but his spirit's with us, I'm sure. Mitch, your memories of Sir Bobby?
And has touched through the foundation so many people in the Northeast as well. Yeah. Transcends. He's the one man who transcends Newcastle Sunderland. Everybody adores him. And I think that's huge. For me, if you want to measure of how he fostered relationships with players to the point where they loved him and at times just didn't care, is the wonderful interview with Shola Amiobi talking about Sir Bobby and what kind of relationship, and does he have a nickname for you? What does he call you on the training ground? And without batting an eyelid, he turns to the camera and he goes, Carl Court. And I will never not laugh at that. And the fact that Shola felt comfortable to do that, it's like playing tricks on your granddad. My dad will tell you, my mum's dad used to wear a hearing aid, and we used to have his life. You'd be around the dinner table and then suddenly stop and see him every other word, and he'd see him fiddling with a hearing aid, to the point where it would be squealing. You could hear the wee, and then somebody near him would go, and he would just jump out the seat. And you'd do it time and time again, and everybody would just put it into that sort of, it's done as family affection. And I think everything that Sir Bobby did with the players, they all took that on. And there was a group of players who I think are still in denial about what they did and how they behaved and how they disrespected them. But for the most part, so many of the players, and you're talking about not easy players to manage. You don't just talk about Fat Ronaldo. Who was the other one that he had at PSV? Absolute mentalist Brazilian that he used to give 2 weeks off for Carnival Week because he would just disappear anyway, and he was Rivaldo. And he was able to manage him. And nobody was able to manage him. And there's other South American players who have horrendous reputations who he managed on the continent. And if he clicked his fingers, they would have come running. And that's a special skill. Special skill to transcend generations, to transcend nations, and as my dad was pointing out, his ability to be multilingual. The fact that somebody like Jose Mourinho comes to St. James's Park and still calls it Sir Bobby's house.
Yeah. Was it Romario?
Yes, Romario, mate. That's it.
Yeah.
Mental case. And he had him at PSV, he had it in Barcelona, and he went anywhere with him. And no other manager could handle him.
That's right.
Brilliant stuff. Some great memories there. And thanks, everybody. I'm just looking at the chat there. Lots of people sharing some great memories, that they've got of Sir Bobby. Halfway through the show now. Time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, starting with Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from mrvickies.co.uk. Email them at info@mrvickies.co.uk or call them on 01768 210 102. Why not try some new beers at Blowhole Brewery? You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks also to United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays based in Morpeth. Telephone 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Thanks also to 3 Properties. They specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the last 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks to Media Arts for all the videos. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button underneath this video today. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to your social media. If you're out and about, you can catch us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. If you want to join the channel, click join and you'll find out our membership packages down there. Very easy to do. Or if you want to become a cult member, £25 a month, go to NUFCmatters.com and look for membership pack, or put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight there. Anyone who subscribes to the channel will get a free car sticker. To get your car sticker, simply email john@NUFCmatters.com. Got a few events coming up over the next few weeks. Steve Howie, Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available for £29 on voucher. An evening with Nobby Solano, Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets £15. Book at NUFCmatters.com. Nobby Solano is also at Felling Cricket Club on Good Friday the 7th of April at 4 o'clock. Tickets are £10 and available behind the bar. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April. That's at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15. Book now at NUFCmatters.com. We've also got a vast array of t-shirts available at the website. If you want your special Wembley t-shirt, you can go to NUFCmatters.com and get one now while stocks last. Okay, it's time for the day I met. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting people from Newcastle United, past or present. This one sent in this week said, "Hi Steve, a photo for the day I met my daughter meeting Steve Howie in Shearer's Bar last season. I was over the moon, and we are coming to the Howie event at the Irish Centre on the 24th. I can't wait. A few hours sleep then London on the Saturday morning. What a weekend." And this one from Kev King. Says, "Hi Steve, you seem to be really pushing the tune meet and greets, which is great. I'll see you at the Howie Clark and Rob Lee ones. Main reason I message you is every time I see Keegan, they sell out in minutes. It's always too late. Don't know if you're involved with him, but if you are, please give me a heads up. You've just missed him in Newcastle. Not with us, it has to be said, but he was at the Tyne Theatre. Also, any current player events, I'll be all over. Nice selfie with Big Dan Byrne, etc." But he says, "I got this one a couple of days ago with Big Joe." So thanks for sending that in, Kev. If you've got one, if you've got a picture, you've got you meeting somebody, then please send it over. And as I always say, it gives us an opportunity to play this wonderful music. Just want to give a shout out to Kev Chilvers, who takes part in a couple of the shows on the channel these days, who lives in America. He's had a little issue with his family at home. I'm thinking of you, Kev, but he did want to say thanks to everybody in the chat and everybody at NUFC Matters for asking after him. But he will be back in due course, and just wants to thank everybody for their kind words. Ray Burrow, He says, me and my many others owe Sir Bobby our lives. His legacy, the cancer unit at the Freemans, is second to none, just like the man himself. He's a class act. Yeah. And Wood says, I met Sir Bobby Robson in Vancouver in 1986. He was with the England team for their final warm-up before the World Cup. A real gent. Let us meet some of the team: Brian Robson, Gary Bailey, etc. And David Cook says, Bobby Robson, more than a manager, had me in tears. It was a great film. And Roger Cook says, I went on a Christmas works meal to a seafood restaurant in Gosforth, and so Bobby Robson was there on a meeting. He winked at me. I sat looking in awe at the great man. That was unforgettable. And Steve Middlemas said there are still 2 seats for the Robson family at St James's Park as a mark of respect by the club, which will never be for sale. Tom Lynch says, I don't think the Mackhams were that respectful to Sir Bobby Robson. They sang a rather insulting song about him. And Mozza says Sir Bobby Robson will be delighted with Eddie too. Talking of managers, George, Jurgen Klopp, not sure whether you've seen his press conference, but he was a little bit calmer today, George. I wonder whether he's going for a little bit of kidology ahead of the game tomorrow night. But he actually heaped praise on Eddie Howe and insisted that our exceptional season so far is not down to transfer spending.
Well, I think somebody in their press office might well have had a word in his ear, because he was starting to look balmy. The stuff he was coming out with was absolutely bizarre. He looked like he was losing the plot. So it may well be that somebody in their press offices had a word in his ear and said, hey, whatever you're going to do, but remember this. And as you just so eloquently pointed out before, there's a couple of them on here regularly. There's a guy from Aston Villa who tells the whole world how much money we spent and then forgets that they've got a centre-back that costs more than the whole of our back five cost. It's just laughable. And Klopp was heading in that direction. So I suspect that it is a bit of kidology, but I think it's also a little bit of reality as well, because he knows if things go well for us tomorrow, he could be facing yet another defeat, which would be a disaster for them, absolute disaster for them. They've already lost twice as many games this year than they did in the whole of last year, apparently. So, yeah, bit of kidology, but I think a bit of reality as well, because up to now, the last few weeks, there's been no reality at all in his press conferences. It's all been off the wall for me, and hinting at how all this Newcastle money was upsetting the power of balance and etc. All that rubbish. When in fact we've hardly spent a thing compared to them or Chelsea or Arsenal or the others at the top of the league. So no, maybe a bit of kidology, but I think a bit of reality as well, Steve.
Okay, Keith, what's your thoughts on Klopp's? It's a bit of a U-turn, really, for me.
I mean, he's come to a club. It's the only team unbeaten at home this season. So he's come to a ground where the home team never been beaten in this season. So what can he say? I mean, like they robbed us of at least 1 point when we went to their place, and he's got people snarling at us, and chucking stuff for that. Like it was a mess what they did down there, and we were made to feel like we'd done something sadly wrong. We had no superstars. They were, sort of one of the top teams throughout the world, and we went to their ground and got in their faces. The thing that frightens me more is that we've stopped getting in people's faces as much, and if you like, we seem to stop doing what got us there, and when Klopp comes to Newcastle tomorrow, he's not going to say, I'm going to come there and batter you. He's not going to come there and say, well, I think it's all money that's gotten there. He's going to play it down because he's an intelligent individual. He's going to do that. But for me, I'm always happier when Arteta's bombing up and down the touchline getting irate, when Man United fans are slaughtering us, when, Conte and Daniel Levy are hating us, and when Klopp's hating us, because when that happens, that's when we're doing good. So for me, when I start hearing people being a bit more sympathetic, I think, are we going a bit soft, or have we lost our sting? So I'd rather everybody. I enjoy being the team that others hate. I enjoy making them jealous of us, and I think they've got something to shout about.
Steve, what's your views on Jurgen Klopp? I just thought he was too nice this time.
You know what? What can you say about Jurgen Klopp when he talks about transfers? I've just jotted them down here. I just think you've got Nunes, 85 million, Gapgo, 44 million, Becker, 60 million, Virgil van Dijk, 70 million, Keita, 53 million, Diaz, 50 million, Jota, 45 million, Salah, 44 million, Fabinho, 44 million, Canate, 35 million. Yeah, okay, fair enough. It's nothing to do with money, is it, Jurgen? Talks out his backside. He just preaches rubbish. He just comes out with stuff. He doesn't engage his brain. He's become a parody, actually. You know, over the last sort of season and a half, when things haven't been going well for them, he's turned into a bit of a parody, a bit of a laughing stock when he comes out with some of the stuff that he does. That's a sign of a manager under pressure. You know, we've seen it time and time and time again when they start to lose it and they start throwing accusations around, etc., etc. And then when they're playing that particular team that they've dead against, they suddenly start throwing out the platitudes. It's just rubbish, absolute rubbish. So let him get on with it. Not interested in Jurgen Klopp anymore.
Definitely not. Donald, happy birthday. Welcome into the chat and welcome to Tipster. Good evening, Joe.
Evening, gentlemen. Are we well?
Yep. Good
Yes,
to see you.
Joe, thank you.
Just going to finish up with Mitch on Jurgen Klopp. What was your view of his interview today, Mitch?
I think Dad's nailed it. I think somebody in Liverpool's got hold of him and said, look, are you going to be appearing at the next press conference wearing a tinfoil hat talking about Hunter Biden's laptop? Because that's the realms he was disappearing into. He was coming across as unhinged. And I think somebody's got hold of him and really calmed him down. I think what he said is factually correct. And maybe somebody within the club said, hey, you're talking out your arse. Stop running that narrative. It doesn't suit us and it doesn't suit you. There's something changed there. There's a dynamic changed. And long may it continue. Is it cardiology? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's capable of that. I think his big mouth runs off with him, and I don't think he's capable of doing anything than saying what's on the top of his head at that particular time. And when it works, and when it doesn't, really doesn't. So, I think he's been guided with his words, shall we say.
Guided by his words. And Joe, just want to come to you about Bobby Robson. We asked the panel a bit earlier. Just memories of Bobby Robson. Obviously, the War Flags display tomorrow, celebrating what would have been his 90th birthday. Any special memories, mate? Any games that stand out, or any stories that you've heard?
I mean, ultimately, there's nothing I can say that hasn't been said before about him. What a guy, what a gentleman, what a manager. Came in at exactly a time when the football club needed him, and I think it was one of them things that was always written in the stars. You know, arguably, I'd have loved to have seen him come in after Kevin Keegan left first time round. Obviously, things weren't to be. You know, the guy had a job and stayed true to his word and stayed where he was. But we got him eventually. And then we went and smashed Sheffield Wednesday 8-0, and it just felt like a completely and utterly different place, you know. And I've never kind of come across such a tangible change, you know. You could feel it, you know. And I just think from then things just seemed to calm down, didn't they? You know, we seem to have someone proper in charge. We seem to have a real manager in charge. I remember the Champions League runs. You got to tune out the tightest bramble, and not many people can do that. You know, and he was just wonderful, wasn't he? So I'm really pleased that the football club are gonna you know, War Flags and the club are gonna acknowledge him tomorrow, because there's nobody more deserving in my eyes. He stands looking at us all as we walk into the ground, and I guess there's no higher accolade than that, really, is there?
Yeah.
Steve, I just comment there that people talking about Freddie Shepherd doing the dirty and doing the deed on him. Yeah, ultimately Shepherd was the one who handed him the papers, but my understanding was that it was Douglas Hall who was the power behind the throne and had fear of his father at the time, and convinced his father that we needed to have a younger manager. That so Bobby had seen his days, age-wise, and he was the one who did it, but didn't have the guts to actually go out there and do the deed himself, because he said, "Well, I'm not the chairman of the football club; it should be the chairman that does it." So that's what I heard, and Freddie was the one who had to go and say the words to him and that type of thing. But it came from a different direction, was my understanding. But either way, that was just symptomatic and synonymous with the way the football club was being run at that particular time. People behind the scenes who had mouths and stuff to say, but never ever stood in front of the TV cameras and explained their situation to the fans. Something, thankfully, that we don't have anymore, and hopefully we've said it many, many times that the best thing that can happen to a football club is to have good communication.
Yeah, very true. This from Gareth from Spider VPN says, "Hi lads, how are you? Has anyone else noticed the view Bobby Robson as their? Does anyone view Bobby Robson as their granddad? I listened to the new Bobby 90 podcast with George Culkin. I felt like my granddad was alive and talking again. I think a lot of people do. To be honest, I haven't listened to them. They're on me to listen to list, like, but by all accounts, they're very
Steve,
good.
Can I express one thing that I wished had happened with Bobby Robson, didn't happen?
Yeah.
And that is that he'd been around when we had Hatton Ben Arthur. He would have been the cure for Hatton Ben Arthur. He would have turned Hatton into a Tyneside hero instead of that plank Pardew and what he did with him. Bobby would have made Hatton a Tyneside hero.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Good point. Good point to make. Okay. I did promise to come back to the questions that were put a little earlier. Sean asks, question, lads. The Barca Man U draw has to be a positive for us heading to the final, as the tie can go each way, and it's 3 days before us. Surely that'll give us the edge. Fitness-wise, George, do you think so? I did see one of the replies from Alan in the chat saying they've got a bigger squad by far and they're rotating and it won't make much of a difference. But still a big game for them to play. And, of course, the fact that they've had more games gives them an opportunity to get injuries. You just never know, George, do you?
Well, the fitness thing for me is a bit of a red herring. For me, it's the mental change. The mental change that's the big one for me. They want to be in the Champions League, and they can't get there by winning the Carabao Cup. The only way they can get there is to either win the Champions Cup or get into the top 4, or is it the top 3? I can't remember. So that's what they want, and that's where their mental bit will be. And for me, it'll be mental tiredness rather than physical tiredness that'll be an advantage to us. And whoever said about the squad, that's absolutely right. But I still think the edge for us is on the mental side of the game, the players and the attitude of Manchester United per se, where we don't have that. We'll go out with one thing on my minds, and that is to win that cup final. And I think that will give us an advantage.
Okay, what's your thoughts, Keith? Barcelona 2, Manchester United 2 last night. I mean, are they more focused on that? Can Man United keep going on all fronts because of the size of the squad, do you think?
I think we look at all the people at the top, and then when I'm talking like Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, they've got squads way and above us. Like we can't kid ourselves on their squad depth is much, much greater than ours. And when you see where we get decimated, we've got, if you said you had Wilson and Bruno missing, them 2 players make a massive difference. But if that was Man United, they'd be able to carry 2 injuries. You could lose Casemiro and you could lose Bruno Fernandes, and you'd still, have a multitude of players coming in and people on the side. And that's why it will take us a long time to get the squad depth. But obviously, if we're sitting in 4th place, it doesn't take as long to get the first 11 to compete with these people. When we play Man United, they played against, I think credit's got to go to them and Chelsea, because when you watch Man United play Barcelona this week, I thought they were unlucky. When you saw Chelsea play this week, I thought they were robbed. I really thought Chelsea were the better team. And I think they've paid 100 million for a lad there. He got skin scentless. what they call this lad, that lad who got the goal, had his name written down. Adeyemi. He went past that £100 million Fernandez as though he wasn't there. Just skinned the ass off him and then rounded the keeper. I mean, it was unbelievable, the skill. So I think your Chelsea's, your Man United's, your Man City's have such squad depth. It's untrue. And I think we are down at the bare bones. And I think what we've got that they don't have is togetherness, culture, will to fight. You know, we've got just a totally different togetherness in Newcastle, and that's what you hope carries us over the line. When it comes to playing Barcelona again, I don't know if it'd be 2-0 Barcelona. I still think Man United would have gone hell for leather to try and reverse the fixture at Old Trafford. And if they were winning 1-0 away at Barcelona, I still think Barcelona would come back for them. So we've got a much, much better pre-Wembley fixture pile up. I mean, like Man United's got Leicester tomorrow or Sunday, and then they've got Barcelona next week, and we've got one game. You know, we've got one game to recover, and we've got a full week from Sunday to Sunday to get ready for this. So Bruno to come back. So it should all be good, but don't kid yourself. You know, Man United, Rashford will be on fire. We'll have to be at our best to turn these over at Wembley. I think we will turn them over. But I think it's because of team spirit. I think it's because people like Dan Burn and them will run through walls for you. But when we bring subs on at Wembley, there won't be the ilk that Man United be able to bring on. You know what I mean? And I just, all you can do is just hope that it's written in the sky and that this is our time. You haven't been to Wembley 6 times and say you get beat every time. You pray that this is the 7th. Your lucky 7th.
Man, what's your thoughts, Joe, from your perspective before we start looking ahead to the Liverpool game?
Yeah, totally agree with Keith there. I mean, for me, it's 2 games in a week, isn't it? They play 2 games in a week every other week. So I think it's wishful thinking that we hope that they're going to be heavy-legged and they're going to be tired. And it's like Pato said, if Anthony's not fit, they'll bring Jadon Sancho on and that's what they can do. This is what we're aspiring to, though, aren't we? We're not there yet. You're right, and we won't be there for a considerable amount of time. But for me, I think the result was immaterial. I think if they'd have won 2-0, if they'd have lost 2-0, if they've drew 2-2, it doesn't matter. They clearly want to win every competition, and I'm certain that they're not sitting there thinking, do you know what, we'll go hell for leather on Wednesday, and that means we can rest a few on Sunday and hope for the best. I don't think clubs like Manchester United are wired like that. They certainly wouldn't have been wired like that 3 or 4 managers ago. I think the game on Wednesday night doesn't matter, and whether it's Barcelona or whether it's Barnsley. Some might argue that actually a midweek fixture, it might be a little bit better for you in terms of your sharpness and your match practice and such like. There's a part of me that wonders, would it be all right if we'd have had a Tuesday, Wednesday game, because at least Bruno could have got back on the park and got his shooting boots on and what have you. So there's various ways of looking at it, isn't there? I hope the rest does us good. I agree. I think, I know we're not quite on to talking about the final yet, but I'd rather have Sean Longstaff in there as a Geordie and Dan Burn, because it might mean something to them, and that might put 10% extra in our legs than they've got in theirs. So yeah, Wednesday means very little to me.
Okay, Steve. I mean, it's Manchester United have been there before, of course. This will be the first time in a cup final for Newcastle for a long time. We'll be looking at it more in depth. But does that game against Barcelona, give us a slight advantage, do you think?
I think it's a big game for Man United, actually, because I think it's an opportunity for Man United to play and have 2 bites of the cherry of getting into Champions League. And it's interesting. It's also Chelsea. Chelsea see this as an opportunity as well. Win the Champions League to get into Champions League. Man United see going through the UEFA and winning the UEFA Cup as being that stepping stone into the Champions League next season. And the draw could actually open up for them as well. That's the interesting thing. That's why they're taking it seriously. But they're Man United, so you'd expect them to take every competition that they're playing seriously, because they do have a strong tradition, a strong history, and a strong squad. And I think what they've got is they've got a rejuvenated squad. Ironically, since losing Ronaldo, the manager has managed to galvanise something, and he obviously is we laughed at the start of the season when they were struggling, but they've gone on a nice little run, which has got them into the top four. But will it make a difference if they lose on Wednesday? Like George says, in the head it might. In the head, it also in our head might make us think, you know what? They've just been beaten off Barcelona. They've just blown a chance. Let's get stuck into them and let's finish them off for the season. Because we are competing for that fourth spot as well, and we could nab a UEFA Cup spot straight away by winning this competition, and we could, by continuing the form that we're in, knock them out of the possibility of being in the Champions League next season. So there's lots of little games being played around the periphery. But I'll probably not even watch the game on Wednesday night. I'm whenever it is. Is it Wednesday that they're playing? Not Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, it's been brought forward to Wednesday. I'm not really that interested. My main focus is getting through tomorrow, making sure that we've got a fit squad and that all the players are ready and available that can be. Obviously, we're going to have a few. There's going to be a few knocks along the way. We've got a few players that are struggling. But that's my get tomorrow out the way and have a good week's training, and then the squad get down on Friday to London, prepare themselves, and then we'll join them on Saturday and Sunday.
Would you not rather play the Reading, Steve, instead of Barcelona? Because if Andy Carroll got back on the pitch, he might have took a couple more out.
That's true. Yeah.
Mitch, I think as well, Eddie Howe's message is quite clear in his press conference today. We'll just focus on ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's all we can do. That's all we can influence. They've got to get on and do them. I think everybody's touched on. I think the only thing that could potentially work in their favour would be injuries, and I never hope any player gets injured. Imagine how gutted you would be for any of our players if they got injured before the final.
But theirs is all right though.
Yeah, shite house. Yeah, I love it. Seriously, we can only do us, and they've got to do them. The one thing that's starting to rankle with me a little bit is already disrespected for in particular. Some of the fans have convinced themselves they're getting Qatari money. They've gone into this mode where it's only Newcastle. We're not really bothered. We're not interested. We'll walk away with this anyway. And I hope that filters into the dressing room and into the playing staff, because we'll get a surprise. They couldn't hack with it, man. At Old Trafford, they got frustrated, and that was even with Ronaldo doing his bloody Swedish fish impression, and Fernandez and half the team surrounding the referee and doing their mental games and their bullying tactics, and they still couldn't break it down. And they are not in for an easy ride. Yet I've got the distinct impression some of them think they are. They've forgot. They've forgot who we are at the moment. They've forgot who came to Old Trafford and trod on their toes and poked their eyes. And long may that continue, bring it on. And if they do pick a few injuries up along the way, works in our favour, happy days. But we just focus on us. That's the only thing we have control over, is us. Yes, it's handy that they've got extra games, I think, at this stage of the season. Yes, it's handy they could pick up injuries and or other things that might affect the team. I mean, imagine what they'd be like coming into the game having had a thumping off Barcelona. I personally don't think that will happen. But where do they go? Do we get a wounded tiger? Or do we get somebody whose confidence is absolutely on the floor? The Man United I've seen this season, I've not seen anything of a tiger in them at all. So, the only thing we can do is focus on us and just let it all play out.
Yep. Paul66 says, Steve, can you give a massive shout out to Keith for for his messages of condolence last night? I lost my brother to cancer on Wednesday. I was sorry to hear that, Paul. Keith, the messages meant the world to us. So just thank you.
Well done, Keith.
The lads, he got bowel cancer at the end of last year, and Dan Byrne did him a message from the training ground. Beautiful message, and he said, look, I heard you bad, and I heard you're not too well. And he says, I just hope we bring the cup back from you. And spoke to his family last night and trying to get a message. So today, I've been trying to get a message. Well, I think we've got a message going through to Dan Byrne on Monday, and we hope to get something back. His two kids are distraught because the dad was made up with a message. Dan Byrne did a cracking video for him.
I saw that. Yeah,
the lad couldn't hold on, and he'll be watching Wembley from above. But to his family, you've just got to. He's no age. He's younger than me. You just look at him. Cancer kills families, and just my thoughts are with you. And I hope Dan gets a message back here before the cup final. But take care of yourselves, everybody.
Yeah, we reiterate that on the platform.
Can I just want to vouch for the uplift all these kind of messages give, which I've been the recipient of, and Neil as well in the past 3 or 4 weeks. It's been great.
Yeah. Okay, it's time for Tune Lookalike. We know how this works. Steve Hastie's. He has a load of Steve Hastie's modelling the Umbro sportwear kit that somebody sent us this week. At least it's not a dog, Steve.
That's true.
It's not a dog. Robin Asquith, morning. There's Steve Hastie with Robin Asquith.
Steve, if you ever had a washing machine go wrong and flood your kitchen with soap suds,
I haven't.
And then find one of your neighbours came in and all their clothes fell off.
No, I haven't. I've never rolled around in bubbles.
Ian Armstrong says Steve Hastie lookalike, Sheffield United's chairman, I believe, which again, not a dog. Hastie on a night out.
Double.
Rodney Marsh. Warren Barton actually liked that one. Wrestling from the 1980s and 90s. Steve Wraith, answer the question. Would Steve Hastie have been a world champion?
Of course he would.
There's George. This was in our WhatsApp group that Neil posted. He went posted without comment. I wasn't sure if that was a lookalike of Steve Hastie. Was it, Neil?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stephen is just for men days.
Stephen is just for men days. Andrew Harbert says, look how many Steve Hasties are in this tree. The monkeys have obviously got jealous of the dogs.
Oh, God almighty. Bunch of flowers now.
Douglas Morris said, just sent this. It's more Boswell, of course. We've had that one. Albert was back on the scene. Everyone's seen me head. Steve Bennett says, I had to do a double take. Rodney Marsh and our very own Steve separated at birth. Sorry, Keith, it's not a dog. He said. This is from Chippers.
It's just a woman in the
Now, this is from Hastie doesn't look happy.
That's because it's a lion.
Rolling on. This one from Barry. 5 minutes into two lookalike and still, and he gives you this look. I've had to separate these, so there we go. Steve looking angry there. Steve looking pensive. Steve looking angry. And these ones, one for Hastie. This is from Rita. Oh no, this one's actually from Tom Dixon. Rita's still to come. Albert said this. I visited a pet shop this morning. Can you believe these bunnies are all called Steve? There's one. There's Steve. This is from Albert. This one's called Steve.
It's not.
This one's called Steve.
It's not.
And then we've had these sent in from, these are the ones from Rita.
Is that Steve the alpaca?
That's Steve the alpaca. I said this one as well.
Mountain's goat.
She sent this.
Haven't a clue.
This one's from Tim. Have a happy birthday, he said to me. He said, yes, Steve Hastie.
No, it doesn't. Just says having a cracking day. There's no mention of me in there.
So that's that. This week. No,
Steve,
Johnny
I think
Alvin-
you should set the RSPC on them, Steve. That's what you should do.
Definitely. We'll be getting shut down by them.
Well, that last one was baller than me and Steve.
This guy Sam Smith caused a big inbox inload for me, like Buster Gonad. Of course, he got compared to this one, lookalike, and this one, very similar. Keith, I think you've been overdoing the shoulder press and squats, says Albert. And this one, lookalike, offering Sam Smith at the Brit Awards and a ruined Sunday dinner from Daddy Al Ramayan. Very good.
What's it all about?
Albert sent this one. Keith looking like boss baby. Wayne Bennett, lookalike, not a million miles away. That plus I bet.
I wish I had his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
This one was from Albert as well. Silver-tongued devil in his youth. Thanks for that, Albert. Nice one, you can fit me up. Rocky Toon, this one lookalike I saw on Facebook. Chucky and the Bride of Chucky and Ed Sheeran. Yeah, very good.
Aye.
And this one, what's your thoughts on that one, lads? We're getting a little bit closer to lookalikes here, I think.
Gareth Gates.
That's far too close to a lookalike for me.
It is. Far too close. This one, hi, Stephen. Might not want to use this on lookalike, he said, Geordie Jackson. He says, to be honest, I don't think it should be on there, but the resemblance is pretty remarkable. Our own Eddie Howe and the transvestite rapist who's been in the news, partly responsible for Nicola Sturgeon's downfall, Isla Bryson. Now, that's apparently Rita's better half, and Rita refused to send it. So he said he'd send it. So there we go. Thank you, Johnny Jackson.
Absolute quality, Johnny Jackson.
I love the way he says it shouldn't be on, but he still sends it.
I think we should get a few more from Johnny Jackson. So if you're listening, mate, send a few more in.
Exactly.
Vladimir Kufal and Cat Weasel. That's really good. In fact, it could have been Steve Hasty.
Get them dogs on, man.
There's a dog. Mesut Ozil gets it in the neck. Just not as much as Steve, but he gets it in there. This one, very good. Again, possible Hasty, but no, compared to someone else. Martin O'Neill and Alexis Taylor. That's excellent.
No, that's a good one.
It is, yeah. This one I'm sure we've had before. West Ham coach Paul Nevin and Pob. Certainly had Pob before.
Aye.
And Abraham Grant and Boss Naz.
My God.
Excellent, that.
Yeah, me.
That would worry us.
And this one.
Aye.
Yeah, I can see the resemblance there. And this one's the winner this week. Lee Evans and James Tarkowski.
Definitely.
Very good.
Right.
Really good one.
I think the dogs have been treated.
Yeah, some good ones. Keep them coming in and we'll feature them on the show next week. Okay, Newcastle play Liverpool tomorrow live on Sky, 5:30 kickoff. Game is sold out, and as always, we have regular features leading up to the game. And Andre is going to be at the match tomorrow, and he has submitted his report forthwith.
Hello, the Amigos. Greetings from Edinburgh. I'll be seeing you tomorrow live at the stadium. Newcastle against Liverpool, 17 games unbeaten in the league, equaling our all-time league record from 2009-2010 in the Championship. If we go unbeaten tomorrow, it's the one and only record of all time. We play against Liverpool also 12 games undefeated in the league at home, starting from last season against Arsenal, and 11 games in the league into this season. When you count also the games in the League Cup, we're 16 games unbeaten at home, our last defeat being in April against Liverpool. Against Liverpool, we don't have a win in the last 12 games, 4 draws and 8 defeats. Our last win was in December 2015 when Gini Wijnaldum scored twice, and we were managed by a certain Steve McLaren. When it comes to players, we have played 5 games without Bruno Guimaraes so far. We have drawn 4 and lost 1. Miguel Almiron scored against Bournemouth, and he scored his 10th league goal of the season, becoming the 17th player who scores double-digit goals in the league for Newcastle. And one last stat, Liverpool have lost their last 3 away games, 3-1 to Brentford, 3-0 against Brighton, and 3-0 against Wolverhampton. They haven't conceded 3 or more goals in 4 consecutive games since September 1954. Let's see what will happen tomorrow at St. James's Park. Let's hope we write another record 1 week before Wembley. Away the lads.
Great stuff from Andre.
Brilliant.
Look forward to seeing him till tomorrow. And it's now time for Tune Tipster. Hello, Joe. Over to you, son.
How's he doing that without the script? Makes me look bad. He's taking the piss. 9 more sleeps. It's 9 more sleeps. And I haven't been this excited since that time that Johnny Allen managed to get through an NUFC Matters quiz without cocking it up. Even John. Early prices for next week's cup final are out. And somewhat predictably, we are second favourites. Manchester United, 13-10 to win in 90 minutes. 10-1 to win extra time, and 9-1 to win on penalties. Whilst the real United are 21-10 to win in 90 minutes, 12-1 to win in extra time, and 10-1 if you think we'll win on penalties. The draw after 90 minutes is 23-10, just over 2-1. I'll update next week with the scores and the scorers, etc., etc. But before then, this year's League Cup winners host Liverpool with revenge in mind after that disgusting robbery that happened at Anfield earlier this year. I'm not talking about the match. I'm talking about my alloys getting pinched outside the ground. Bastards. Anyway, home win tomorrow, 6-4. The draw is 5-2. And given our recent form, I don't think that's a bad shout, to be honest. And an away win is 17-10. 1-0 Newcastle, 10-1. 2-0, 14-1, and the Penman is 20-1. 0-0, 11-1, and ones each, which is well fancied, is 6-1. 1-0 Liverpool, 10-1, and 2-0 Liverpool, 14-1. Isak and Salah are favourites to score any time in the game at 2-1. Anthony Gordon is 11-4. And interestingly, I had a look what price he was to get sent off tomorrow, and that's 15-4 because he does like to put his foot in. ASM and Big Joe are 3-1, and Big Dan and Big Sven, they've drifted out to 11-1. Please take it easy, folks, and only bet what you can afford. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Paul66 says, thank you so much for shouting that out, Steve. Lovely words from you all. Thank you for the messages on the screen. It really does mean the world to me and my family. Not a problem, mate. Our thoughts are with you. And don't forget, if you need to talk, mate, pick up the phone and speak to people. That's very important when you go through that, as I know only too well. Lots of people enjoyed the lookalikes as always. So, yeah, it's always a favourite part of the show. But Newcastle versus Liverpool tomorrow, George. I'll bring in the questions from Spenny Mag and John Askew, which we got at the start of the programme. Spenny Mag said, do you think it'll be the same team tomorrow? And John said, should Gordon be in for Miggy tomorrow? He's quick, he's fit, he's creative, he chips in with goals, generally gets in your face. It would also be a rest for Miggy before Wembley. I mean, team selection is going to really depend, George, on who's fit. We heard the update from Eddie Howe. I've done my review of it earlier on today. Callum Wilson hasn't trained all week with the squad, but ultimately was training today. It would be a late call on whether he would be available for tomorrow, and he would only be interested if he was 100% fit. Certainly wasn't thinking about the final. He said, he has to be 100% fit for tomorrow's game. That's all he's thinking about. As for Miggy and the ASM, well, it came as no surprise, I think, to most of us that the ASM was fully fit. Nothing wrong with him. Miggy was taken off as a precaution for a hand injury, so both of them have trained all week and both are okay. The good news to come out of the press conference today was that Willock's injury wasn't as bad as we thought it was, and looks likely that with a good week's training, he should be okay for Wembley, as will Matt Target, who is back training with the first team squad, just needs to get his fitness levels up. He could also be fit for a place on the bench if he does well this week. So it's all positive news coming out of St James's Park. But what's your view on what he's going to do with the team tomorrow, George?
Well, if they're all fit, Eddie Howe being Eddie Howe, he'll play an unchanged team if he can. However, I would implore him to find a place for Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon would die to beat Liverpool tomorrow for us, and just make a mess of them all over the place. He would run himself into the ground just to give Liverpool a hard time, and I think we should capitalise on that. So if, as I say, if they're all fit, Eddie Howe being Eddie Howe, he'll start with an unchanged team. But I would implore him to find somewhere to fit Anthony Gordon in, because I genuinely think that he will give Liverpool a hard time all over the pitch, and that's something that we could do with. I mean, the lads were talking the other night about the fact that it's the two in the middle that protect the back that we need to get at. Well, that's exactly the place that Anthony Gordon would be at. He would give them no rest whatsoever. So I would like to see, whatever the team is, that he finds a slot for Anthony Gordon. As to the game itself, well, I'm still confident that we're going to win. I still have a 2-0 hanging around me neck at the moment, and I'm happy to leave it there. So, yeah, I think if they're all fit, he'll pick an unchanged team, but I still would like to see Anthony Gordon in the team.
Prediction for tomorrow, George?
2-0 to Newcastle.
2-0 to Newcastle. Okay, Keith, what's your take on what he's going to do with the team tomorrow, and what's your prediction?
Same kind of crack as George. I think he'll try and keep an unchanged side, but I'm with George. I don't think he can keep Gordon out the side. And the reason being is he can't play at Wembley the week after. So, you can get the lad to just absolutely run his nads off. And what's better to put a lad in who's been brought in for 40+ million, who's playing against these local rivals. It's like sticking Dan Burn in a team and saying, right, you're playing against Sunderland next week. And you can't play the week after. You can just run your knacks off. For me, I think Gordon's got to find a slot. And, when you look at that team, I think the back four picks itself. Keeper does. We're short on midfield players, and I think that's where Gordon's got to come in. And I think Miggy should start as well. But when you've got a quite unfit Wilson, not 100%. You've got Isaac, who hasn't really happened yet fully. So you question fitness there. The SM's come back, hasn't quite happened as much as he would have liked. And you've got Gordon, who to me, since he signed, he's just looked as strong as an ox when he's come on. He's looked great touch. He looks creative. He's got both feet, and he can't play in the cup final the week after. So in a sense, he can't really, other than getting sent off, get injured as such and miss a big match next week. But for me, I think you've got to just put the cup final aside and put your team out to go hell for leather for this. And I would find a place for Gordon. And I think one of the casualties will be either SM, Wilson, or Isaac. One of them, I just don't think will be fit or be ready. So that's what I would do. It'd be almost unchanged, barring Gordon for me. Result 2-1 at Newcastle.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I'd play Anthony Gordon, and whether it's arguably he's going to come in for Sam Maximin for me, unless Maximin goes up front. Potentially, I don't know. Trent Alexander-Arnold does like to leave an acre and a half of space behind him, so maybe Sam Maximin will play. Last chance saloon to stake a starting place in next week's cup final, although we've been saying that for the last 3 weeks. He's had 3 weeks to do that, and arguably wouldn't get in my starting 11 based on what I've seen. So big game for ASM tomorrow, and as I always say, I hope he shoves it up me and scores a hat-trick. I do agree Anthony Gordon's got to play. I've liked what I've seen so far, but actually it's nice, isn't it? Because if Miggy needs a rest, or if it's not quite happening for Isaac or Sam Maximin or whatever, it's nice to have Gordon on. So the conversation we were having earlier about the squad and the bench and stuff, it's nice now, because ordinarily, with the greatest of respect, we'd be thinking, I wonder if it's going to be Murphy, or I wonder if it's going to be Fraser playing tomorrow. So it's nice to have a £42 million problem, I guess. Eddie Howe likes to play it safe. His system is tried and tested. He trusts in his system, and there's absolutely nothing to suggest he won't. He'll do anything different tomorrow. So I wondered a couple of weeks ago what we'd be like, whether we'd be going hell for leather once we beat Southampton, and it does feel like, for whatever reason, we've took our foot off the gas a little bit. We're certainly not pressing high up the park like we were earlier in the season. Right. So is tomorrow another, let's play it safe, let's get through 90 minutes. If we can get through relatively unscathed, that's fine. Or is tomorrow an absolute dress rehearsal for next Sunday and just absolutely it? And I hope it's the latter, because actually we're focusing a lot and we're talking a lot about the cup final naturally. But if you look at the Premier League, 3 points tomorrow for Newcastle really, really puts the shit against the fan for the others.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, let's do it. Let's go for it. But I am going to play safe, and I am going to go with the book, and I'm going to say I'll take ones each.
Okay, Steve?
Back four picks itself, doesn't it? Goalkeeper picks himself. Question is, who does he play in centre midfield? Who does he play wide? And who plays down the middle? I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going to say that the midfield three will be Longstaff, Joe Linton, and Murphy. I'm going to go Isak up front, because I think Wilson struggling, not playing, not training all week. I think Eddie Howe will not risk him. And I think who plays alongside? I'd like to find a spot for Gordon, which means it's either ASM or Almiron that would be out. One of the things I've noticed with Newcastle since ASM's come back in is he just stays on the left. There hasn't. Last season they were swapping over. He was coming over on the right. He was cutting in, that type of thing. There was a lot of interplay. This season, we've stuck rigidly to a formation. And the one thing that you can say about Eddie Howe, he doesn't pick a team to suit the opposition. He doesn't pick a team with the opposition in mind. But I think on this occasion, I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped Almiron, played Gordon and ASM, and got them alternating.
So, Anderson would be people in the chat's preferred choice. I'm just saying.
I know they would, but I don't. I've said it all. I've said it for 2 seasons now. Eddie Howe trusts Murphy, and I think if he's going to play ASM, he's got to have somebody down that and in the midfield on that left-hand side that protects Burn a little bit, because Burn gets no protection. And I know people say, oh, he doesn't need it. We've only conceded 13 goals all season. But that's not the point. We suddenly started conceding at the back post for some reason in the last 2 games, which is a bit worrying, But in terms of the score, in terms of Liverpool, I mean, some of the stats that came up there from Andre are great, but there was some that he missed off. Like, for example, the last home defeat that we had was against Liverpool, but we've gone 20-odd games since then. They haven't done anything. And Liverpool, actually, although Liverpool and Man City are the only teams that have taken scored more than 2 goals or scored more than 1 goal against us this season. But the other thing about Liverpool is that since they kept a clean sheet against us last April, they haven't had a clean sheet since, believe it or not. That's suspect. And that's why, getting down the wing, alternating, giving their defenders something to think about and pressing on their central 2 in the midfield, because they're all over the place. It's going to be a great game. I hope it's a great game. And I'm going to go for a 2-0 win.
Okay, I'm glad this show's not going on for another hour. We'll be getting panned for this Murphy decision.
That's what it's all. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
Oh yeah, you annoy everybody before you go off. Great.
Well, they've been annoying me for the photos for the last 7 minutes.
Get the dogs back on. Get them dogs back on.
Down.
Get some dogs back on the screen.
Mitch, what's your thoughts?
Agree with the sentiment of getting Gordon in the team, and I tell you who I would have him going against is Robinson. The left back. I saw something from him the other day in the Liverpool derby I've never seen. Pickford pushed his buttons.
Yeah.
And he was lucky to stay on the pitch. You know, he grabbed someone's throat and laugh in their face. Some referees will send you off for that, and I've never seen that from him. And I need to talk to Stu about that because I haven't had a chance to this week. About is that something that's in him, or was it just Pickford pushing his buttons? But I'm sure if Pickford can push his buttons, I bet Gordon can. So I'd be interested to see that. I think they're vulnerable at the back. They're not as solid at the back at all as they have been. And I don't mind who he goes with. I'm happy to roll with it. Just happy to roll with it. But we've got to get in that face. They haven't liked that this season from anyone. And as long as we play with the intensity and the energy, we have a real chance here to make a statement, not just to the league, but ahead of the Carabao Cup final as well.
Have you got the dice?
I have.
Oh, go on then, mate.
Hey. And yeah, we'll go. The dice says 2-1.
Oh,
Pato.
2-1. Okay, yeah, I've gone 1-0. That's what my prediction always comes on a Thursday night. And
Murphy.
I went 1-0. So yeah, I think we all feel it's going to be slightly tighter than it has been. But yeah, revenge for Newcastle certainly. Okay, two things to finish off with. Okay, Elliot's joke this week. A man walks up to a woman in a nightclub and says, "Hi, the name's Bond." She says, "Don't tell me your first name's James." "No," he replies, "it's Uni. I'm here to fill your crack."
Oh,
Right.
God. Oh,
That's got to be.
oh, dear me.
Steve,
That's his best joke ever.
That is, I've got to be honest, that is the best one I've ever done.
Steve, while we're on, can I tell you me Nazi knock joke?
Oh,
Come on, then.
will it get this show kicked off air?
No.
Okay. I trust you.
Knock.
Who's there?
We will ask the questions.
Yeah, meow. I just want to thank John for sending in the clue. Tunbridge Angels. That's your first clue for this week. So get that written down. And we've also got a food bank T-shirt. This one's going to be signed by Peter Beardsley. It's Peter playing for Vancouver Whitecaps against George Best.
George Best.
I hope he's got a white pen.
He's got a. It's a one-off. It's a one-off, that one. So get yourself bidding. It's on me.
Or a silver one, Keith.
Exactly, mate.
Over the top at Steve Wraith. Get yourself onto me Twitter, and you will find that. Make a bid, and we'll announce the winner next week. And finally, Julie, here it is. Constantly licking arse is Steve Wraith. See, a bit different that as well this week, lads.
Is there a queue?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that, mate. Thanks to everybody tuning in. Over 580 at one point. Never take it for granted. Thanks to all the mods for keeping the chat clean, and have a great weekend. George, Keith, Buramag, Steve, Mitch, and of course, Andre. Take care, lads.
Good to see you all.
Cheers,
lads.
everyone.
Good
See you
luck.
tomorrow.